roommate bathing. Her form was not what I expected. Part 2. The shared apartment sat halfway up a quiet tower in New Rotterdam, where the city lights looked like scattered stars and the air always smelled faintly of rain and warm metal. It was not a fancy place, but it was safe, clean, and, most important, affordable for someone like Elias Ward. Elias had never planned to live with an alien. A year ago, he was just another human technician on the interspecies housing exchange list, hoping for a roommate who would pay rent on time and not leave dishes in the sink. Then, the message arrived. Match confirmed. A visiting cultural researcher from the Lorraine Compact needed a local residence. The program offered rent support. Elias clicked accept before he could talk himself out of it. That was how Siren came into his life. She was difficult to describe. Why? Not because she was frightening, but because Elias's brain kept trying to force her into human shapes. At a glance, she seemed roughly human-sized. Bub. She wore simple clothes. She spoke through a translation band at her throat. But the more Elias looked, the more his eyes slid away, like they could not decide what they were seeing. Siren's kind were called the Kesh, and the Kesh did not fit neatly into human ideas. They were not men or women in the way humans were. Their bodies could appear smooth and calm at rest, then show patterns and edges when they moved. Their skin could shift in shade with emotion, the way humans change tone with blush or pale fear. The Kesh were not made to blend in. They were made to endure a world humans would not survive. Still, Saren was polite, quiet, organized in a way that made Elias feel messy by comparison. For the first week, they lived like polite strangers who happened to share a kitchen. Elias woke early for his job at the orbital elevator maintenance hub. He brewed coffee. Bean set. The smell filled the apartment, comforting and sharp. Saren did not drink coffee. Her species processed different compounds, but she liked the smell. She once described it as warm bitterness, and Elias had laughed because that sounded like a poem. Siren spent her days reading human media and recording notes. She watched old Earth documentaries, listened to human music, and asked questions that were both innocent and unsettling. Why do humans watch sad stories for enjoyment? Elias had shrugged. Maybe because it reminds us we're alive, or because we like to feel things. Siren had been quiet for a long moment after that. Her skin had shifted into a faint, deep pattern, like ripples on dark water. The second week was when the apartment began to feel like a home instead of a waiting room. Elias came back late one evening after a long shift, shoulders heavy and hands smelling of machine oil. The elevator hub had been noisy and tense all day. A small system error had turned into hours of extra checks. He stepped inside and found the lights low. Soft sound drifted from the living room, music. Not human. The notes had a strange, layered quality as if the song carried two melodies at once. Siren was sitting on the floor with her legs folded, a small device beside her. She looked up when Elias entered. Her translation band clicked softly.
I am practicing,
she said. Practicing what? Elias asked, setting his tool bag down. Human relaxation, Siren replied. I observed that you returned from labor with many signs of strain. Reduce strain with sounds. Elias blinked, then chuckled. You mean music? Yes, music. Siren tilted her head. It is inefficient for survival, but you prioritize it. Elias sank onto the couch. Some things aren't about efficiency. Siren studied him, very still. That is what humans say often. He felt a tired smile tug at his mouth. Because it's true. That night, Elias slept better than he had in weeks. It was small moments like that, odd, gentle, almost funny, that made Elias forget the risk of sharing space with someone from another star. He started leaving extra fruit on the counter, just in case Siren wanted to try more human food. Siren started adjusting the apartment temperature, slightly warmer in the mornings because Elias shivered when he woke up. They did not say these things out loud. They just happened. The third week brought routine, and routine brought mistakes. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. Elias had taken the day off, thinking he might finally fix the kitchen cabinet door that never stayed closed. He had also promised himself he would do laundry, but he was still at the stage of thinking about it. Siren had mentioned she would be using the bathroom for personal maintenance. Elias had nodded without asking questions. Well, and He had learned quickly that Kesh privacy rules were both strict and complicated. Some things were treated as deeply private. Other things, humans considered private, were treated as normal. So Elias busied himself with the cabinet door. The apartment was quiet except for the soft click of his screwdriver and the distant hum of the city outside. He was focused, half in his own thoughts, when his wrist device buzzed with a message from work. "Oh, gent. Confirm your availability for tomorrow's shift swap." Elias muttered under his breath. He tapped a quick response with one hand, then frowned. He needed his calendar. His calendar was on his old tablet. His tablet was in the bathroom. He paused, then looked down the hallway. The bathroom door was closed, light shining faintly under it. Elias remembered Siren's words, personal maintenance. He should not interrupt. But the message had urgent in it, and Elias's work supervisor was the type to call if someone did not answer fast enough. Elias hesitated. Then, like a fool, he told himself, "I'll just knock, grab the tablet, and leave." 2 seconds. He walked down the hallway and knocked lightly. "Siren?" "Sorry, quick question." No answer. Maybe the translation band did not pick up the sound through the door. Elias knocked again, slightly louder. "Siren? I need my tablet." "It's in there." Still no answer. Elias shifted his weight, nervous. He should walk away. He knew that. But the wrist device buzzed again. "Need answer within 10 minutes." Elias swallowed. He reached for the door handle. The door was not locked. It opened with the quietest click. For one heartbeat, Elias saw too much. Steam fogged the air. The bathroom light reflected off drifting moisture like tiny stars. Siren stood near the shower area, her back turned slightly, and her body was not the steady shape Elias had learned to expect. She was changing. Not in a human way. Not like removing clothes. More like shifting between states. Her form seemed layered, as if the air around her carried outlines that did not match one another. Patterns moved across her skin with slow, calm rhythm, like living maps. Her silhouette held angles and curves that came and went. It was not meant to be seen by someone who needed human certainty. Elias's mind tried to label it. Failed. He did not feel fear. He felt shock, like looking at a new color and realizing there was a whole part of reality humans never named. Erin turned her head just enough for Elias to catch a glimpse of her face. Her eyes, usually calm, widened. Elias froze, then snapped back into motion, like his body remembered manners before his brain did. I'm sorry," he stammered. "I thought you heard me." "I shouldn't." He backed up fast, pulling the door closed, heart pounding like he had run up 20 flights of stairs. The hallway suddenly felt too bright, narrow, too human. Elias pressed his back against the wall, breathing hard. His hands shook. Inside the bathroom there was silence. Then a soft sound. Something like a quick inhale, but not quite. Elias stared at the floor, cheeks burning with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," he said again, voice low, hoping she could hear him through the door. "I needed my tablet. I should have waited." A pause. Then Saren's voice came through the door, filtered and oddly tight. "You saw." Elias swallowed. "Yes, but I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying. I just opened it without thinking." We went. Another pause. Longer this time. "What a reason you need to come forward?" Siren asked. "For privacy?" Elias blinked, confused, then realized, "Yeah. Usually we lock doors." "I thought you had." "I did not," Siren said. "I assumed your species would treat closed doors as a boundary." Elias winced. "We do. I do. I messed up." Silence again. Elias imagined Siren on the other side, trying to decide what this meant. Was it an insult? A threat? An invasion? For humans, it was all of those things, but also, sometimes, just a mistake. Elias clenched his fists, then forced them open. He tried to keep his voice steady. "I won't do it again," he said. "A promise. I'll wait outside. Take your time." He stepped away from the door. giving it space as if space could fix what happened. He walked to the living room and sat on the couch, staring at his hands. The apartment felt different now. Not dangerous, just fragile. He had been proud of himself for handling an alien roommate calmly. He had told coworkers with a casual shrug that it was fine, that he was used to it. But sitting there now, Elias realized he was not used to it at all. He was still learning, and learning meant mistakes, and mistakes could hurt someone. Minutes passed. Elias's wrist device buzzed again, impatient, but he ignored it. Data. At last, the bathroom door opened. Elias did not turn immediately. He kept his eyes on the wall, as if staring at paint could show respect. He heard soft footsteps. Siren stopped in the hallway. "Elias," she said. He turned slowly, careful. Siren stood, fully dressed now. Her form returned to the calm outline he recognized. "What?" But something about her posture was rigid, defensive. Quickly, then stopped himself from stepping closer. "I'm sorry," he said again, because he did not know what else could start to fix it. "I didn't understand. I thought I was being quick. I wasn't thinking." Siren looked at him for a long time, her skin shifting faintly, small patterns moving like quiet storm clouds. Elias wondered if that meant anger or fear or something else he did not have the language for. "You reacted with distress," Siren said at last. Elias frowned. "Distress? When you saw," she clarified. "Your heart rate increased, your face changed." "Your pupils," Elias blinked, then let out a breath. "Oh, yeah." I was shocked. Not because you're, well, you know. Not because you're wrong, just because I wasn't expecting it, and because I realized I'd invaded your privacy. Siren's eyes narrowed slightly. "You were not repulsed?" The question hit Elias harder than he expected. He shook his head immediately. "No. I didn't understand what I was seeing, but I wasn't repulsed. I was embarrassed. And honestly, a little amazed." Was Ed? Siren held very still. Amazed. Elias nodded. "It's just, you're different in ways we don't have words for yet, and that's not a bad thing." Siren's translation band clicked softly, like it was working overtime. She tilted her head. "In Keish culture," she said carefully, "to witness that state without permission is considered a violation." Elias flinched. "I know, and I'm sorry. If there's anything I can do..." Siren lifted a hand, a small stop gesture she had learned from human videos. "The coordinator warned me humans make errors quickly, then regret quickly. I did not believe it fully." Elias swallowed. "We do." Siren studied him again, then her shoulders lowered slightly, like tension easing by a small degree. "There is a term in your language," she said. "Accident." "Yes," Elias said, voice soft. "This was an accident." Siren was quiet. Then she nodded once, slow. "Then I will treat it as such," she said. "What?" "But we must set rules." Elias felt relief rush through him so strongly his knees almost went weak. "Absolutely. Whatever rules you want." Siren's skin shifted, the patterns smoothing into something calmer. "Closed doors are boundaries," she said, "and I will use your lock." Elias nodded fast. "And I will never open a closed door again, ever." Siren paused, then added, almost awkwardly, "Also, you left your tablet in the bathroom." Elias let out a small, helpless laugh. "Yeah, that's on me." Siren stepped past him and placed the tablet on the coffee table, carefully, like it was fragile. Then she stood for a moment, looking out the window at the city lights. "I did not expect," she said quietly, "that you would apologize so many times." Elias rubbed the back of his neck. "When you mess up, you should say sorry." Siren turned her head slightly. "Your species invests heavily in repair." Elias did not fully understand what she meant, but he felt the weight of it. Humans were not the strongest species in the compact, POP. They did not have the fastest ships or the hardest bodies, but they did have something else, the stubborn need to fix what they broke, even if it was only trust. Elias glanced at his wrist device again, and finally answered his supervisor with a short message. Then he looked up at Siren. "Are we okay?" he asked. Siren considered. Then she gave a small, careful nod. "For now," she said. "We are learning." Elias exhaled, and the apartment, fragile as it was, felt like it could become home again. But somewhere deep in Elias's mind, one thought remained, quiet and persistent. He had seen something real, something human eyes were not meant to understand so quickly. And if a simple accident could reveal that much, then what else had humanity been living beside, without noticing? The next morning, the apartment felt like it had learned how to hold its breath. Elias moved quietly, like sound itself might cause another mistake. He washed his mug the moment he finished drinking water. He wiped the counter even though it was already clean. He checked the hallway twice before stepping out of his room. Saren's door stayed closed. He kept remembering the steam, the strange shifting outlines, the way his mind had failed to understand what his eyes were seeing. But the memory that hurt the most was not the image. It was the question she had asked. "You were not repulsed?" Elias had not realized, until that moment, that someone could live in a body and still fear that others would hate it. He sat on the couch with his wrist device in his hand, staring at the message thread from his supervisor. He had answered late, so now he was scheduled for an extra shift. Normally, he would complain. Today, he did not care. Work was easy. Trust was hard. He listened for any movement down the hallway. When he finally heard Siren's door slide open, he straightened so fast he nearly stood up too quickly. Whoa! Siren stepped out, dressed in her usual simple clothes. Her translation band rested at her throat. Her posture was controlled but not cold. She looked like someone trying to act normal while carrying a heavy thought. Elias stayed seated, keeping his hands visible and calm, like he had once seen a dog trainer do. "Morning," he said softly. Siren paused, then answered, "Good morning." There was a long silence where both of them seemed to wait for the other to choose the right words. Elias cleared his throat. "About yesterday." Siren lifted a hand again, the stop gesture. "We already named it." Elias nodded, swallowing. Quivered. "Yes, accident. But I want to make sure you feel safe here." Siren's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger but in careful focus. "Safety is many things," she said. Elias forced himself to breathe evenly. "Man, then tell me what you need. I'll follow it." Siren walked into the kitchen and set a small tablet on the counter. It was not Elias's tablet. It was hers, thin and dark, with a soft glow that moved like liquid under glass. "I prepared," she said, "a household protocol." Elias blinked. "Yes," she tapped the screen. Symbols appeared, then changed into English words as the translator worked. To reduce misunderstandings. Elias leaned forward slightly, but he did not get up. He did not want to crowd her. Siren read the first rule aloud, voice steady. "Closed doors are boundaries." Joke. No entry without verbal permission. Elias nodded. "Agreed." "Second," Siren continued, "bathing time will be scheduled and announced. During that window, the hallway is not to be used unless urgent." Elias winced, then nodded again. "That's fair. I can plan around it." "Third," she said, "if urgent, you will knock twice and speak once. If I do not respond, you will leave. You will not touch the handle." Elias felt heat rise in his face at the clear detail, but he understood why it mattered. "Yes, I won't touch it." "Bull." Siren studied him. The patterns on her skin shifted faintly, like a small wave passing over calm water. "Fourth," she said, "we will create a shared storage place for your objects, so you do not need to retrieve them from private spaces." Elias let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. "That's actually smart. I'll set up a shelf." Siren nodded once. "Good." Elias hesitated. He wanted to ask something, but he did not want to push. Still, the words came out. "Can I ask you something?" he said. Siren's gaze stayed on him. "You can ask. I will decide if I answer." "That's fair," Elias said. "Cup." He swallowed. "When you were in that state, the one I wasn't supposed to see. Were you scared because I saw it, or because of what you thought I might think?" Siren did not answer right away. She looked toward the window where the city sky was pale and cloudy, like it could not decide whether to rain. Finally, she spoke. "My people travel far. We study many species. Some species learn our biology and treat it like a tool. Elias's stomach tightened. A tool! Saren's voice stayed calm, but the words landed heavy. They ask how we endure radiation, how we heal, how we change. Then they ask how to copy it. Some do not ask, they take. Elias felt his hands curl into fists, then he forced them to relax again. Humans haven't done that, right? Siren turned her head slightly. Not yet. Many humans do not have access. Your governments signed agreements. Your laws are strong. Elias nodded slowly. He had heard of those treaties in the news, but they always sounded distant, like something for diplomats and rich people. It was different hearing it from someone who could be harmed by curiosity. He said carefully, "I'm not interested in copying you, I just want to understand you as a person." Siren stared at him for a long moment, then her skin shifted, lighter, softer. Not bright, but less guarded. That, she said, is unusual. Elias gave a small, tired smile. Humans are good at a few things. One of them is caring about people who aren't like us. Don't. Not all humans, but enough. Saren's translator clicked. That is what your stories claim. Elias stood up slowly, keeping distance, and opened the fridge. Want to try breakfast? I can make toast. Dub. Or I can attempt something cache-safe, if you tell me what that means. Siren hesitated, then stepped closer to the counter. I can consume your fruit, your grains, and your water. Your coffee is, dangerous. Elias huffed a quiet laugh. Fair. Coffee is dangerous to some humans, too. For the first time since the accident, Siren made a sound that was almost a laugh. It was softer than his, like a small exhale with surprise inside it. Elias toasted bread. He sliced fruit. He set one plate near the edge of the counter and kept his own plate farther away, giving her choice and space. Wild animal. But he did not mind. Trust had to start somewhere. They ate in silence for a few minutes, but it was not the painful silence from before. It was the quiet of two people thinking. Saren placed a piece of fruit down, then asked, "Why did you not look away with disgust?" Elias blinked. "Because I wasn't disgusted." "But you were startled." "Yes," Elias admitted, "because I didn't expect it, and because I realized I crossed a line." "I wasn't scared of you. I was scared I hurt you." Siren watched him carefully. Humans fear hurting others? Elias almost answered with a joke, but something in her tone stopped him. She was truly asking. "Yeah," he said simply. "Whoa, a lot of us do. It's part of being social. We mess up, then we try to repair it." Narrowed. Siren's eyes narrowed slightly, like she was reading a difficult page. "Repair," Elias nodded. "Ooh. Like fixing a cabinet door. You don't throw away the whole cabinet if a hinge breaks. You fix the hinge." Siren's gaze flicked toward the kitchen cabinet Elias had been working on. The door still hung slightly crooked. "You were repairing when the accident happened," she said. "Yep," Elias said, embarrassed. "And I still haven't finished." Siren tilted her head. "Then finish it." Elias blinked. Now, she repeated. Elias looked at the cabinet, then back at her. Something about her voice sounded firm, like this was not only about a cabinet, it was a test, or maybe an invitation. He nodded. "Okay." He grabbed the screwdriver and knelt by the cabinet. Saren crouched nearby, not too close, but close enough to watch. Elias worked carefully, tightening the hinge. The screw resisted, then turned smoothly. The door lifted, aligned, and finally shut properly with a soft click. Elias exhaled. There. Fixed. Siren stared at the closed cabinet door, as if it had spoken a new language. "You apply effort to restore function," she said. Elias wiped his hands on a cloth. "Sierre." Saren's skin shifted again, a faint pattern moving across her arms like calm rings on a pond. "This is a human instinct?" Elias thought about it. About how humans repaired broken phones with tape. Joke. How they rebuilt cities after storms. How they apologized after hurting someone's feelings, even when pride screamed not to. "Maybe," he said, "we're fragile compared to a lot of species. So we got good at fixing things. Tools, machines, relationships, whatever keeps us together. Siren looked at him, expression unreadable. Fragile, she repeated softly. Yet you build elevators to the sky. Elias shrugged. We didn't have a choice. Earth is crowded. We had to reach upward. Siren took another bite of fruit. On my world, only the strongest climb. The weak remain below. Elias heard the quiet sadness behind the words. He said gently, On Earth, the weak climb too. We build railings. We make ropes. We carry each other. Not always, but enough that it matters. Saren's eyes held his. Works, like it needed time to digest more than words. Your people are strange, she said. Elias smiled, a real one this time. You're not wrong. That afternoon, Saren asked to see Elias's repair records. Elias did not understand until she pointed at his old photo folder, pictures of things he had fixed over the years, a broken drone rebuilt with spare parts, a cracked helmet patched and reinforced, a small robot toy repaired for his niece. Saren watched in silence, then said, You do not discard what breaks. Elias leaned back on the couch. Not if it can be saved. Saren looked at him again, and the meaning was clear without being spoken. Not even trust? Elias met her gaze and nodded once. Not if it can be saved. In the evening, Saren went to her room and returned with a small device the size of a coin. She set it on the table between them. What's that? Elias asked. A privacy lock, she said. Cache design. It seals the door and announces occupancy in 3 languages. Your program coordinator approved it. Elias stared. You bought that for the apartment? For us, Siren corrected. Elias felt something warm in his chest, something that eased the last tight knot of guilt. Thank you, he said. Siren's eyes softened slightly. Do not thank me for protecting myself. But you may thank me for trusting you enough to stay. Elias nodded, careful with his voice. Then I'm grateful you stayed. Siren stood, then paused at the hallway. Elias. Yeah? She hesitated, then spoke with effort, like she was translating emotion into language one piece at a time. Yesterday, she said, I thought you might become like the others, the ones who look and then calculate. Blastic's stomach tightened. I'm not like that. I observed, she said quietly. Wah. You apologized. You made rules. You repaired a hinge to demonstrate repair. Elias blinked. That wasn't a demonstration. I just fixed it. Siren's skin shifted in a pattern that looked almost like amusement. Humans demonstrate without knowing. Then she turned and walked to her room. The door closed. Elias stayed still, listening for the click of the new lock. A soft chime sounded, gentle and clear. Occupied. Privacy respected. Elias let out a slow breath and leaned back on the couch. Outside, rain began to tap the windows, light and steady. Word. The city lights blurred softly behind the glass, like a watercolor painting. Elias realized something then. This was what humanity did best when it chose to. Whoa, not conquest. Not dominance. Not showing off strength. It built small bridges in quiet rooms into rules. Fear into understanding, and distance into something that could be shared. And somewhere beyond Earth, among species who measured worth by armor and endurance, one cache researcher was learning a dangerous new idea, that the soft species did not just survive, sometimes the soft species changed the meaning of safety itself. The next few days passed quietly, almost suspiciously so. Elias moved around the apartment with deliberate care, as though he could erase the memory of the previous accident with perfect attentiveness. He left Siren's door alone. He never touched her things. He even stopped bringing his tablet into the hallway. Small things, but habits mattered. Siren, for her part, seemed calmer. She kept her routines, but her presence was lighter, less guarded. She smiled, just a little, when Elias made coffee. She hummed while she prepared food, a sound that was almost music, but not quite human. Elias realized she did not need to speak to fill the room with a sense of life. Her very existence was communication. It was a Saturday morning when things changed. The sunlight spilled over the city, pale and golden, and the apartment felt warmer than usual. Ellis was reading at the kitchen table when Siren approached. She carried a small notebook, one that glowed faintly along its edges. "Elias," she said softly, "I have an invitation for you." Elias blinked. "An invitation? For breakfast?" Siren shook her head. "Not for food, for observation." He frowned. "Observation?" "Yes, your species, humanity." Her voice was careful, but there was a spark of something almost like excitement. "I want to learn more." Properly. Not just from reading. Not just from watching. From living alongside you. Elias leaned back in his chair, a mix of surprise and pride swelling in his chest. "You want to study me?" "Personally," Siren nodded. "Yes, I am a researcher. I observe patterns. Your recent behaviors, corrections, apologies, repairs, they are unusual among your kind." "You are a good subject." Elias laughed lightly, shaking his head. "A subject? I guess I always wanted to feel important, but not like this." Saren gave a tiny shift of color across her skin. A smile, he realized later. Word exceptional is better. That word lingered in Elias's mind as they went about the day. Siren followed him silently, noting details he never realized mattered. How he made tea, how he organized tools, even the small movements he made when he was deep in thought. Word. Every detail fascinated her. Every detail reminded her of why she had been assigned to study humans in the first place. By evening, Elias realized that he had grown used to her presence in a way he had never expected. It was no longer the nervous awareness of being watched. It was companionship. And yet that night, as he prepared to sleep, he felt a strange unease. It was not fear. It was anticipation. Something was coming. He could not explain it. The next morning, the city was quiet, almost empty. Rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and reflective. Elias was brewing coffee when Siren entered, carrying a small device that looked like a miniature star map. "This," she said, placing it on the counter, "is called a spatial observer. It allows me to track patterns, flows of energy, movement, communication. I wish to observe more than just your actions in this apartment." "Ooh. I want to see your interactions with the city, with your people, your species' social behavior." Elias leaned forward, intrigued. "You mean, like a field study?" "Yes." Saren's eyes glimmered. "WAF, field study. To understand how humans survive and thrive, not just individually, but collectively." Elias hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, I think I can help with that." They left the apartment together, moving carefully through the city. Elias showed her the small, subtle ways humans navigated their environment. The way neighbors greeted each other with a nod, even when they did not speak. The way a baker would leave extra bread on the table for those who could not afford it. The way people shared small acts of kindness, unnoticed by most, yet sustaining entire communities. Sharon observed silently, recording, taking notes with precision. But Elias noticed that sometimes she paused, her eyes widening slightly, patterns flowing across her skin faster than usual. He realized that in some ways she was as affected by humans as humans were affected by each other. At one point they stopped at a small park where children played. Elias watched the laughter, the shouting, the energy that seemed endless. He looked at Siren, expecting her to analyze, but instead she simply watched, still and quiet. "They are resilient," she finally said. "Even at their weakest, they endure. Even at their smallest, they influence others." Elias nodded. "That's humans." She studied him, her eyes deep. "Your species adapts in ways my people do not. Zoo, you are fragile, yet you carry influence. You are weak, yet you inspire cooperation. That is unusual." Celis, "Yay, that's humans. We survive, and then we help each other survive even when it's not easy." Siren's gaze held his. "And yet, your species does not have the physical strength, nor the environmental tolerance, nor the survival adaptations of many others in the galaxy." "No," Elias admitted, "we do not. But we have something else. We have being back therapist in GA, determination. We care. We try. We repair. We endure mentally, emotionally, socially. That is what keeps us alive even when we seem weak." Saren's skin shimmered, faintly, in patterns Elias had never seen before, like ripples of admiration or realization passing over calm water. "You survive through cooperation," she said softly. Through empathy, through teaching and learning. That is dangerous, in a way my people do not understand. Your species can change minds, change hearts, change outcomes. Not with force, with persistence. And died. Yeah, I guess we do. She nodded. Studied even by species who could easily dominate you. Your power is subtle, but it is real. Your species shapes worlds without armor or claws. Elias felt a strange pride, not the pride of strength or skill, but the pride of being understood. For the first time, he realized that being human, being kind, curious, adaptive, was impressive. In a galaxy of powerful species, humans survived through intellect and empathy, and that Siren had just recognized. Over the next few hours, Siren documented Elias's daily routines. She followed him to the market, watched how he interacted with shopkeepers, noticed the small gestures of attention he gave to the elderly and the children. She did not intervene. She did not comment. This simply observed and recorded. But at night, back in the apartment, she spoke. "You demonstrate principles of repair and trust," she said. "Your species makes mistakes, yet chooses to correct them. You apologize. You learn. You build bonds. That is remarkable." Elias smiled faintly, sitting at the counter with a cup of tea. "We call it living. We don't always do it perfectly, but we try." Siren tilted her head. "You try, even when the cost is personal. Even when others may reject you. It's the most powerful trait I have observed." Elias was quiet. He did not expect praise. He did not seek it, but hearing it from her, knowing that an alien species that measured value by endurance and strength now recognized humans as exceptional, it felt like validation, like the universe had quietly nodded at him. The next day, a message arrived on Siren's communicator. It was from her supervisors, a new mission, a field report request. Other species were curious about humans, now because of her observations. Siren read the message silently, her face calm. Then she looked at Elias. "The galaxy is beginning to watch your species." Joke, "Your species' social structure, your cooperative instincts, it is being noted." Elias laughed softly. "Noted? Like in a notebook?" "No," she said, "noted as a factor in interstellar relations. Humans are influential. Your strength is subtle, but undeniable. Some species may underestimate you.
Others may attempt to replicate you.
But you survive and thrive by being human." Elias felt a thrill, almost like fear, mixed with pride. He had never imagined being recognized on a galactic scale. But now, seeing it through her eyes, he understood. Rome. Humans were not weak, they were unique, and that uniqueness had power. For days after that, Elias noticed subtle changes. People in the city treated each other with slightly more attention. Small acts of kindness became noticeable. And he realized quietly that humans' influence was not limited to the galaxy or aliens. It radiated from one human to another, small and steady, persistent. Siren, meanwhile, continued her observations, but now she participated more actively. She discussed human behaviors openly. She asked questions about emotions, trust, and empathy. Was teaching her about humans, was teaching himself as well, reminding him that even fragile species could have extraordinary impact. One evening they sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker like distant constellations. Whoa! Elias sipped tea while Siren adjusted the spatial observer on the table. "You humans are remarkable," she said quietly. "I study strong species. Your species, I cannot measure it by strength. I can only record it, and what I record may change how the galaxy views you." Was smiled. "We're used to being underestimated." Siren tilted her head. "Yes, but underestimated does not mean weak. It means unnoticed. And now, humans are being noticed." Elias felt something warm and steady in his chest. "That's good. That's the best outcome we could hope for." Siren's skin shimmered softly, like the first light of dawn. "You survive not through strength, not through fear, but through your choices, through your heart. That is humanity." And in that moment, Elias understood something profound. Humans were fragile. War. Humans were ordinary. Humans could be broken easily, in many ways. Yet humans were extraordinary. They endured. They cared. They repaired. They reached out to the unknown and found ways to connect, and that was their power. The galaxy may have underestimated them. The galaxy may have counted them out. But humans, through empathy, through persistence, through living with care, had already begun to leave their mark. Elias glanced at Siren. She was no longer just a roommate. She was a witness. And through her eyes, he saw what humanity could be. Small, fragile, yet quietly unstoppable. The days that followed felt different. The apartment, once ordinary and quiet, seemed to hum with a subtle energy, as if the walls themselves had noticed the shift. Elias woke with a sense of anticipation he could not explain, a feeling that the world beyond the city, and even the stars themselves, was watching, waiting. Curious. Saren moved with her usual calm precision, but there was a new lightness in her steps, a rhythm that suggested her thoughts were elsewhere, even when she remained present. She had received a private message from her supervisors, confirming what she had already sensed. Humans were being observed by multiple interstellar species now, not as potential threats but as anomalies, creatures whose fragility belied a strength unlike any other. Elias noticed her moments of pause, her quiet smiles at minor details, the way steam curled off his morning tea, the laughter of children in the street, the orderly chaos of a market bustling with traders and shoppers. Each detail fascinated her in ways Elias had never seen. And in watching her watch the world, he began to understand that humans were extraordinary because of their attention, their care, and the depth of their curiosity. One afternoon, Siren approached Elias with the spatial observer she had been carrying for weeks. Its faint glow pulsed like a heartbeat. "Elias," she said softly, "I wish to leave the apartment." He blinked. "Ways. Leave? Where?" "To observe humanity beyond your neighborhood. To see how your species functions as a collective, your routines, your systems, your societies." Elias felt a mix of pride and nervousness. "You want to take me on a field study?" "Yes," Siren replied. "Not you as an individual only. You are my guide. You will show me your world as it truly is, with its failures and successes. I want to understand what makes humans endure." They stepped into the city, moving through streets alive with motion, energy, and color. Siren watched everything: the way people helped one another, the way they smiled at strangers, the quiet acts of kindness that often went unnoticed. She took notes meticulously, recording patterns, behaviors, and interactions, but her eyes told Elias something deeper: awe. At one point they arrived at a small park where children played on swings and climbed on jungle gyms. Parents watched, some chatting, some silently supervising, but all engaged. Elias observed the way children corrected one another, shared toys, and comforted those who fell or stumbled. "They adapt quickly," Siren said softly. "Even at their smallest, they correct behavior, learn rules, and maintain social harmony. Your species, it is remarkable." Elias smiled. "We try. Sometimes we fail, but we try." Tilted her head. "And even when you fail, you repair. That is unusual. Most species, when they make mistakes, respond with punishment or withdrawal. Humans, you repair, and in doing so, you maintain bonds." He felt a swell of pride. That's humanity. We survive, yes, but we also preserve what matters. Does, but others too. Their journey continued through the city. Wham! Siren observed markets, schools, and transportation hubs. She watched humans cooperate to solve small problems, adapt to unexpected challenges, and communicate through gestures, words, and expressions that carried subtle meaning. Dissats, but persist with patience and determination. At one point, they stopped at a community center where volunteers organized a food distribution for those in need, watched quietly as people worked together seamlessly, despite differences in language, culture, and background. Siren's skin shifted, faint patterns rippling across her arms like soft waves. In scarcity, humans organize. They create systems not only to survive, but to ensure others survive with them. That is exceptional. Elias nodded. We help each other. It's what keeps us going. It's why we endure. Saren paused, turning to him with a gaze that felt heavier than it had before. I now understand why humans are noticed across the stars. Not for strength, not for aggression, not for power, but for empathy, for cooperation, for persistence. Your species does not conquer with force. It conquers by sustaining life, by inspiring trust, by repairing what others break. That is the power of humanity. Warm, spreading through his chest, he had never considered himself extraordinary. He was just a human, living in a quiet apartment, making mistakes, trying to fix them. Yet Siren's words reframed everything. Humanity's true power was subtle, quiet, pervasive. It changed worlds without weapons, without violence. That evening, back in the apartment, Siren connected the spatial observer to her personal network. Soft lights flickered, displaying abstract representations of the city's flow of life. Energy moving from one person to another, patterns of cooperation and care extending outward like invisible threads. See? She said, pointing to the streams of light. These are human connections. Even small actions ripple across your world. Every repair, every kindness, every cooperative effort. It grows, it spreads. Your species influences itself in ways that others cannot measure easily. Ooh. Elias watched, fascinated. It's beautiful. I never thought about it like that. Siren nodded. Most humans do not. Yet, this is your strength. You influence without seeking reward, repair without recognition. You endure without expectation of admiration. That is why you are noticed now. He felt a deep sense of responsibility settle over him. Whoa. So, humanity's actions matter more than we realize. Yes, Siren said, her voice soft. Even small acts matter. They can shift outcomes, change perceptions, and shape the future of your species. You survive not through physical dominance, but through connection, through choice, through care. For the first time, Elias understood the weight of what it meant to be human. It was fragile, yes. Vulnerable in countless ways. But that fragility carried within it a power no other species had. The ability to endure collectively, to change hearts, to repair what is broken, and to inspire growth in ways that raw strength never could. Days passed into weeks. Siren continued her observations, now more interactive, asking questions, seeking understanding, and sharing insights. She engaged with humans in the market, the library, and even in small community projects, noticing how they cooperated, repaired mistakes, and encouraged one another. Elias watched her learn, adapt, and marvel, and he realized that the alien who had once seemed unknowable was now not just a companion. Through her eyes, humanity's quiet brilliance was becoming visible. One afternoon, Siren received a message on her communicator, a request for a field report on humanity. For submission to the Galactic Council, Siren looked at Elias. Your species will be officially recognized. Soon, the galaxy will see humans as they truly are. Elias blinked. Recognized? Like respected? Yes, she said. Did. Not feared, not underestimated, respected. Your cooperation, empathy, adaptability, these are qualities that other species cannot replicate easily. They are unique to humanity. And now, the galaxy will take note. Elias felt an overwhelming mix of pride, responsibility, and wonder. Humans had never sought recognition beyond their world. Yet now they were being measured against the stars, and found exceptional. Not for their weapons, nor their strength, nor their speed, but for the quiet, persistent, compassionate way they lived together. That night the apartment was quiet, but not tense. Elias brewed tea, while Siren reviewed her notes. You've taught me more than observation alone could, she said softly. I have seen humanity, not as a species to catalog, but as a force of life that shapes itself and others. That is extraordinary. Elias set his mug down, smiling. I didn't know humans could inspire aliens. I thought we were just ordinary. You are not ordinary, Siren said, her skin glowing softly, patterns shifting in gentle waves. You endure, you repair. You care. You inspire trust and cooperation. That is power. That is humanity. Elias felt warmth rise in his chest, deep and steady. Then maybe we are stronger than we thought. Siren nodded. Stronger in ways that cannot be measured by force or speed. Stronger in ways that will influence the galaxy quietly, persistently, and forever. Outside, the city lights reflected on the wet streets, small pools of golden shimmer. The rain had returned softly, and the world felt alive, connected, and full of potential. Elias realized that humans were part of something larger, not because they dominated, but because they endured, repaired, and inspired. And somewhere beyond the stars, other species were watching. Not to conquer, not to test, but to learn. Humanity, fragile and quiet, was changing perceptions across galaxies, showing that power did not always roar. It could be gentle, consistent, and quietly unstoppable. Elias looked at Siren, who returned his gaze with a faint, approving smile. She had been a witness, a student, and a messenger, and through her, humanity's subtle brilliance had begun to shine across the stars. He understood then that this was only the beginning. Humans would continue to make mistakes. They would continue to fail and repair, to stumble and learn. But every act of care, every choice to repair what is broken, every moment of empathy, it mattered. It shaped the world. It shaped the galaxy. And in that moment, Elias felt something profound. Humans were fragile, yes. But in their fragility, they were unstoppable. Siren's soft, shifting patterns reflected the city's lights through the window. "You are extraordinary," she said simply. "Yes," Elias agreed, softly. "We are." Outside, the rain continued to fall, steady and gentle, washing the streets clean, carrying reflections of light and hope. And humanity, quiet and persistent, continued to endure, to repair, and to inspire. Proof that strength is not always visible, but its effects ripple through worlds and stars alike. And so, Elias and Siren sat together, quietly watching, quietly learning, knowing that humanity's story was far from over, and that its quiet, persistent power was only just beginning to be understood by the galaxy.